But I've discovered something that no one else on YouTube or on the forums have said about this teleconverter. It's revealed later.
Oh, okay.
Right, teleconverters.
Oh, yeah.
I would say the most controversial, debated topic in photography.
Yep.
It's almost daily on the forums. Is the 2 times any good? Is the 1.4 worth getting?
In general, are teleconverters worth it at all?
My curiosity got the better of me, and really, I wasn't expecting anything from it. Because I've got my 400, and when I bought this, I knew that I needed longer length at certain times. More than half the time, I need something longer. And it's supposed to be really good with teleconverters. So the biggest difference, and this is the big reveal, I might as well just get on with it.
Get on with
nip
it.
it in the bud. So the biggest difference is that it's really good with the ZF. So that means lower megapixel cameras. I've seen the biggest increase in sharpness and reach getting closer to the subject with the ZF, with this teleconverter.
As opposed to the Z8.
As opposed to the Z8, where you can crop in more.
Yeah.
The ZF, or Z6 equivalent, you can't crop in as far because you don't have the megapixels to play with. And so this is where the optical quality of this comes in. The teleconverter I've cropped in 150%, and the detail is outstanding with a teleconverter. You see all the craters, and sharpness is amazing. And cropping into the equivalent with the ZF without it, it's not a usable image. It's pixelated, there's no sharpness. You have to crop out to about there before the image comes together again. Well, I first took it out and I took a picture of a big park sign. I stood in the same position, did all the combinations of kit I've got.
Yeah.
And it was relatively flat light, and it was a good distance away.
Yeah. You use it on the 70-200 and the 400.
And the ZF and the Z8.
Blimey.
Straight in with the ZF, 70-200, and the same settings, but the ISO is 1000 more. Obviously the field of view is much better. So I've cropped in 150% the teleconverter and 300% without. The teleconverter has provided a much better image. The ZF megapixels just can't resolve cropping in that far, which makes sense. So 200% is about where the ZF can crop into in this case. The 400, 4.5. And again, the ISO used in the teleconverter is 2000 more. Even though the teleconverter seems to smudge some of the areas, like the writing I would say is still better on the ZF without the teleconverter. On the actual centre of focus, I would say the teleconverter has done better. But because it's a 100% increase in optical quality, it beats the megapixel. So there's the optical quality, and there's the megapixels. It can't quite get to the same level as like the Z8 can, because it can crop in. I was without my Z8 for a while, and I use this just all the time on the ZF. If you can shoot really low ISO, which the ZF is good at, because it has the best image stabilisation. So if you can get those ISOs down really low, then you're going to get a good image. So the question arises, if it's really good with the ZF, how would this and the 70-200 on the ZF, would it get close to my Z8 with a 400 lens?
I don't know, have you not tried that?
I've tried it several times,
yeah,
and again it's inconsistent. Oh. So in different conditions, the teleconverter will have different results. You can see that the Z8 has much better resolving power, the colours, the contrast, the image rendition, but using the teleconverter with the Z8 in this situation, the teleconverters again takes away the quality of the Z8 on its own. But sometimes it's about on par, but it's never, the teleconverter is never going to be better than a dedicated lens, ever.
No.
But it's close. Cropping in 200% with the Z8 and only 140% with the ZF, you can see that the Z8 has a better image rendition. Sharpness wise, they're pretty much the same. Can't really see much difference, but I'd actually give it to the Z8 for more of a complete image. And that's why I was because before you got your Z8, I was thinking, well, for someone like you, who doesn't have a wildlife lens, doesn't have a Z8, maybe this is a good solution on the ZF. So yeah, with the ZF, you can get much closer and better quality in certain situations.
What are those certain situations?
I think one of the main things that comes out of this is it's quite inconsistent.
Yeah.
Because it's magnifying all the issues with the image that you already have. Because you have to double your ISO using this, in lower light and bringing up the shadows, you're going to struggle more. When I've been shooting wildlife, so I can see the details in the shadows as I shoot. But of course, using Teleconverter doubles the ISO in the shadows, therefore it's going to be more difficult to find detail. And so with high contrast situation, it's going to struggle to regain the picture quality. So I managed to get a bright moon photo just after sunset. So I applied the same editing to each photo for a fair test. So you can see in this example, the Teleconverter has done a much better job, and I'm not really sure why. The 70-200 with the Teleconverter is really good actually. And here's a good example to show that. I can actually crop in more with the Teleconverter image, and you can see detail in there, and obviously without the Teleconverter it's pixelated. Massive difference in image quality there. And here's the 400 lens now with the Teleconverter and without. There's hardly anything in it, if not the same, because the Teleconverter isn't so good with the 400 lens. So interestingly, let's compare the 70-200 with the converter versus the 400 on its own. As you can see, the native lens of the 400 is always going to be better than using a Teleconverter, even though the Teleconverter does quite well with the 70-200. Now you've had a little go on this.
Yeah, I only had a little go on my new Z8.
Yeah.
And just using the 70-200. I did 2 sets of tests, but in that test, it seemed to me, I was quite surprised, the Teleconverter seems to be, when zoomed in, a little bit sharper. But then when I redid my test, keeping the shutter speed the same and everything more consistent, I couldn't see any difference really.
B-roll.
Why did you drag me in? But then I sent you the files with your much younger eyes, and you said, oh yeah, it's much better with the TC.
No. Well, at first I agreed with you. I looked at them, raw files on my Lightroom on a 5K display, 27-inch screen, and the Teleconverter's images were softer. However, when I applied editing to them, when I sharpened them a bit, the Teleconverter image was much better.
Right.
You could get closer to the subject, and it was a better image rendition.
See, I can't see that as anywhere near that much. For me, it's marginal either way.
Yeah.
And also, it appears to be inconsistent. So if I was going to have something like that, I would want it to be consistently better in most conditions, so that you know that if you put it on, it's worth doing it. Yeah. You don't want to put it on and think, oh, actually today it might be slightly worse. Yesterday it was slightly better, because you don't know until you've taken the photos, got home, stuck them on the computer, do you? So.
And that's what I found. So I took it, I used it on a Robin in really good sunlight, and the Teleconverter image was much better.
I bet the Robin got bored waiting, didn't he?
He did, it was very good. Thank you, Robin. But the image was much better on this. And then I went around the corner, and still in sunshine, there was a starling really far away. And then it was about an equal.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's amazing for this then, because it's doing a great job. If it's doing a bad job, it would be obvious, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but you can read it the other way. There's no difference, so
why bother using it? Yeah,
it's just an unnecessary expense.
So you've got the practicality of using it. I mean, is it practical to use? So I can put it in my pocket.
Yeah.
Oh, I need it. I can change it. It's a bit of a faff changing over in the field. But you can possibly do it. Is it better than taking a whole other lens kit and a whole other camera with you? Focusing is a really tricky one. So, when I first got it 6 months ago, I noticed that it wasn't so good at focusing. It wasn't acquiring the focus so much, and it wasn't tracking it so well with the Teleconverter.
Right.
But things have changed. The Z8 has now got the new firmware update from the Z9, the bird autofocus, and it's noticeably better. I mean, you using it yesterday, did you notice much problem?
No, it was fine. Focusing was fine. I mean, I'm only just getting used to how brilliant the Z8 is anyway.
And so actually sometimes it's better because the field of view. So if you're using the Teleconverter, you have 800mm obviously, and there was this, what's it called? What is it? I think
Egret.
Right, one of them. in the wood, and it was like I was shooting through branches and all sorts. My 400 lens on its own couldn't focus on it, so I managed to put the teleconverter on, and straight away it grabbed focus of the eye.
I suppose it's making the target bigger in the viewfinder. It's probably helping the camera find it focus on it, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I hadn't necessarily thought of before.
Yeah.
But
As you found out, it's really important. I've lost some good opportunities because I've been using this. Because I'm too
on your
far.
400, so you're
Yeah.
800mm.
Yeah.
So you can see a bird with your naked eye, and then you pull the camera up and you can't find it.
If it's too close, you can't find
and
it.
It's gone.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I use DX mode.
Yeah.
So you have the breakdown of I've got 400, DX mode is 600 field of view,
Yeah.
and then I put this on, it's 800, and then with the DX mode it's 1200.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other things to consider, like if you stop down with the lens, it's better. It does slightly clean up sometimes, takes away some of the qualities of your lens. And then you lose colour, you lose contrast, distortion as well.
Yeah. Right.
So you got the highlights, the chromatic aberration came back into effect.
Yeah.
The edges were a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
It lost contrast a bit. So you have to kind of put these things back in with editing if you can.
Yeah.
There's some things you won't notice unless you're doing side-by-side comparison.
I mean, when I went with you to that part before the hailstorm happened,
Yeah.
I was using it there and got a couple of decent photos of birds that were sharp.
I have got good results with the ZF and the Z8 with this teleconverter. It is possible.
Blimey.
It's
So you've got like 4 pages of pros and 4 pages of cons now.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this.
So I was hoping that, you know, it's a cheaper way of getting 400 5.6 than buying either your lens, which I don't want to because you're Mr. Prime and I'm Mr. Z, or the 100 400, which I'm really keen on.
Okay, right. So it's just been quite a convoluted, complicated. I wish I could say, oh, this is good or this is bad, like we normally do.
You have to do a bit of heavy editing on this. We've been going about 40 minutes, waffling away about teleconverters.
We have, yeah. So my summary, the best way I can put it is, on the ZF, it's really good and worth having. If I was just using my ZF to do wildlife photography, I would keep this. I don't. I have a Z8 now, back, and I prefer using the power of my native lens.
Yeah.
This is expensive. I want to use it to its full ability. And at times, this is too inconsistent to use on my Z8 with this lens. And it's actually better with the 70-200, this teleconverter, I found. Yeah, I mean, well, what do you think? What's your summary of it? Does it get your stamp of approval? And do you think it's suitable for some types of people?
I'm on the fence. Have you got an icon for on the fence?
No.
I'm not against it particularly, but I'm not sufficiently for it to want to
give it a stamp of approval. I mean, it's been better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And that's really good for the teleconverter. Well, this brings me also to the dilemma, because I got this because I got the 400 lens, and half the time I need longer reach.
Yeah.
I mean, this 400 lens, 4.5, is sensational within its own field. And that's made me debate whether I should have got the 500 PF or the 180 to 600. Yeah. But hopefully this has been helpful. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's just confused everyone even more.
Confused me.
It's confused me. I've kept on rewriting my notes, rewriting the tests, redoing them. I just couldn't get my head around it. And I'm not sure I really fully have.
Okay.
See you next time. Is that our thing?
See you next time.
See you next time. Right.